Hello, everyone. So, I'm going to do this quick little YouTube video on conscious parenting. Um, of course, I have a 4-year-old son, and he, oh my goodness, is a wild one. And so, I just take that to me too, and I see myself, well, I'm a wild one too. He has to get it from someone. um, So this is a topic that I feel just depends if it again resonates with you, and how I always say, if things resonate with you, if they feel good for you. Um there is a lot though behind parenting. It's really difficult in the parenting space because everyone has their own opinions on how to raise children. Do people really know how to raise children? I don't know. It really just depends on that child's experience and what they go through and how their brain chemistry is, and so on and so forth. Um, However, I feel that for me, successful parenting is if my child is happy and they are able to function in a more of a happy state versus what I feel society says the way that my children should be feeling, doing, acting, whatever else. Um, I take a lot from my childhood and my own personal experience from when I was a kid. And I think about all of the traumas that I have been dealing with and all of the healing that I have been doing. And I take that and I bring that into my relationship with my son, Lennon. I think about how a lot of the times children are told to be quiet. They're told not to express themselves. They're told to sit down and to listen to an adult. And are adults always right? I think not. Personally, I do not think adults are always right. I'm not always right. And I know this, I'm aware of this. And it's not like some people have this thing where it's like, oh, well, the parent's the boss. Okay, well, for me, I would rather not be the boss. I am not right all the time. And I look at my son and I just see a big mirror. He is like the biggest mirror right in my face. I feel like children are the biggest mirrors right next to having a spouse or partner or whatever else. And it's going to be triggering at times. And you're going to see things that either you're not aware of, that you may not become aware of. Um, However, if you're listening to like this YouTube video, not podcast, I recorded a podcast before this one. This is a YouTube video. If you're watching this video, then you probably have an awareness or some sort of, you're working on having an awareness on what's going on with you, your patterns. You have some sort of knowledge into psychology or how your brain works, personal development, so on and so forth. And so it's an awareness, and having kids is like having that big mirror shown right to you. And I've noticed a lot too. It's like, I personally have found myself embarrassed because of my son, because of how outspoken he is, and when he wants to talk to people or strangers or what have you. And I think about it and I'm just like, why should I feel embarrassed about this? He is an outgoing child. And me, I was always silenced and told not to talk to strangers. And it's like now it's like, how do you freaking meet people? How do you develop a relationship with someone? They're strangers at first. So, okay, like, yeah, there's like, stranger danger. However, there's a thing called intuition also, and following your intuition and knowing when something doesn't feel right or someone doesn't feel right and listening to that intuition. And another thing with I find, especially as someone who grew up as a wounded empath, and it becomes very prevalent now that people have a hard time saying no. And so I take that into my parenting and I think about it and I'm just like, as a child, I was not allowed to say no to my parents, especially if I felt super uncomfortable, like giving someone a hug that I didn't freaking know. Like, you want me to give Aunt May this hug? However, I don't even know who this woman is. And I say no and you tell me I have to. And so, like, I take that in and I internalize it, especially as a woman or as a girl. It's like, okay, I'm not allowed to say no to giving a hug to someone. And later on, like, what does that show up as an adult? So it's about having like this sort of awareness that that children are little people. They don't pick up on what you say, they pick up on what you do. And it's really difficult for a lot of people to realize that you're not a boss. You're not telling your children to do something and they do it. It's they follow what you do, they believe what you believe about yourself. And if you believe you're a shitty person, well, guess what? Your child's going to grow up thinking that they're a shitty person too, because all of the programs, all of the actions, your identity, everything that you do is going to be based off that identity. And you're going to put that onto your child. And so if you're a person who does not give yourself enough love or time or of day to experience that love for yourself, well, guess what? Your child's going to grow up like loveless, just like you, because you never put any of that love towards yourself. And if you're miserable, guess what? Your child is going to grow up practicing the things that you would do or doing the things that you do and then be miserable too. And some parents don't really care, like, okay, cool. However, the parents that are watching this, I'm pretty sure you really care and you love your children and you just want to be the best version of you so that you can be the best version for them and so on and so forth. um and it's like it's a lot. The more healing that I do for myself, I'm finding, of course, comes from my childhood. Inner child healing. We're just a bunch, I personally believe we are just a bunch of big kids running this world, walking around this world, not knowing what the freak we're doing. And it's like kids also have a lot to teach. They have so much to teach you. And it's like kids are so much more towards that like perfect state. Kids know what they want and they will manifest what they want in any way, shape, or form. It's like a baby, when a baby wants food, the baby will get food. It's only taught to not get what it wants because someone else or something or whatever else, some trauma hurt them into believing that they're either not capable, they're not worthy, they're not good enough, they don't deserve it or it's scary for whatever they're wanting. And so that's essentially what happens. Just a bunch of people are getting hurt and then they're laid or laid to believe that they are not able to get what they desire. And so people have a lot to learn from children. They know what the heck they want. I see my son sometimes and when he wants something, he'll just go and he won't stop until he gets it. Like the tantrums, well, it's not so much tantrums anymore. We've been working on it, especially with me working on my beingness and being more loving, being more understanding. And that's another thing I'm finding is that children are not taught emotions. And so being there to have some emotional guidance, especially during like their tantrums. However, it's like these kids, they will get what they want when they want it. And I look and it inspires me so much too when I watch my Lennon bug get whatever he wants or do what he wants to do. And he's so smart and I just look up to him honestly as a parent. It's like a building a relationship with my children versus being a boss. I don't think that is the right way to go about things. And there are times where he says no to me, and I'm just like, okay, well, why are you saying no to me? I want to know what your reasoning is. And then sometimes he's just like, no. And I'm just like, you know what? Honestly, that's okay. And of course, sometimes it's like me asking for help. And so then I'll ask him for help. And then he's like my little man. And so he'll typically want to help me out versus it's like me pushing something onto him or forcing him to do something or nagging him to do something. And I'm noticing the more that I just like say, like, hey, buddy, like, mommy needs your help today. Could you help mommy? Like, he's more willing to do that versus me being like, do this now, do that now, and just being like a little minion controller. Like, he's not a little minion, he's a little person. And so I think about, well, and he's just a person. It's like I say, little person. He's a little person. Like, want to be cutesy. However, in reality, like, he's a person and he has emotions and he has his own thoughts too. And I noticed too, like, a lot of times, like, well, why didn't this get like, why didn't this get done? Or I'll ask him questions on certain things or like his thought process on certain things. And it makes sense as to why he thinks the way he does versus me just being like, oh, like, why did this spill? What happened? And it could be just simple as like, oh, well, I was carrying these two things at the same time. Like, you asked me to throw things away and I lost balance and I tripped or something. And it's like, oh, you know what? Like, that's reasonable. Like, everyone trips, everyone makes mistakes. I'm not freaking perfect. And so I don't expect my son to be perfect. However, I'm not gonna, it's not like relinquishing control. It's like a relinquishing my control and allowing him to be his own person versus me forcing an image or an identity onto him that I want him to be. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things is that people want to fix people. They want them to be a certain way. They have this fantasy within their head instead of just allowing people to be who they are. And especially with children, it's like parents force their children to be a certain person that they came up within their own head, and then they're disappointed or whatever else with their child, which then causes trauma for the child. Like, the child doesn't feel loved, they don't feel validated, they don't get that acceptance, and then it's like they go and they, I mean, worst case scenario, commit suicide. And that's the big thing is like parents are not allowing these kids to feel loved and accepted. So, and I feel that's why this video topic is so important. It's so important for parents to become conscious so that they can raise conscious children as well, to break this cycle, to break this like dynamic, and to raise people who are happier and thriving versus just surviving. Um, just based off of programs that are within them. And by programs, it's literally like a program within your brain. Like, your brain creates these programs from childhood. And so that's another thing too is like creating good programs for your children to look up to and believing in yourself so that your children could believe in themselves as well. The more that you love yourself, the more your children will love themselves, and so on and so forth. And just being an example versus being a boss and typically a dictator. Honestly, there's like a lot of parents out there who are dictators versus being just a person with a relationship with their child. So, that is my 2 cents on it. And am I a perfect parent? Absolutely not. However, I work to be the best version of myself so that my son can see that. And yeah, I love it. And I love being a parent. And so I just wanted to give some insight on that. And that's it for this video. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.